a tutor and a lecturer in MMU, Multimedia University Melaka campus from 2005 to 2012. She has published more than 30 peer-reviewed journals and conference proceedings, and 10 book chapters and 1 book in her field. She is a member of OSA, Optical Society of America, and a member of Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, IEEE, and a technology specialist, professional members of Malaysia Board of Technologies and Board. And she took her undergraduate study in MMU, Multimedia University, and pursued her master and PhD in Melbourne University and Macquarie University. She was the recipient of Prime Minister's Australia Endeavour Award at USIM and in USIM Fellowship in 2012. Her PhD focused on optical device specialized in laser engineering, and her expertise including optics and laser, image processing, biosensing, and material science. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Wan Zakiah to deliver her talks. Okay, pass to you, Zakiah.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, actually, I would like to share with you my knowledge, okay, in photonic. Can everyone see my slide?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So thank you, Dr. Azlida. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Azlida has taught me a subject, or maybe a subject, I think, as a tutor. I'm not sure. So it's like my senior. Yeah. So today I would like to share with you about this, more like my research in PhD, and I carry this research until now. Okay, so it's about the optical laser that can be used as the biosensor. So okay, this is the background, similar as what's mentioned by Dr. Azlida. Okay, I was MMU alumni. Okay, I graduated 2005. Quite old. So now I'm 38, 39. Okay, and I was a tutor in MMU, and then I also was a lecturer, I think more than 5 years. Okay, it's quite a good experience in MMU, and I love MMU actually. Yeah, but maybe I love Muslim more. Okay, just kidding. All right, so about my expertise, I'm not sure whether I can consider about I can consider it as an expertise. I think it's better if I say knowledge. Okay, so I have knowledge in optical devices, material science, and biosensing. So that basically those are I learned during my PhD. Okay, and I'm also doing research on this field. However, in MMU, I had actually doing research. I done research in signal and image processing and communication. Okay, so in USIM, okay, I was a member. I am a member. I was a member in OSA, which is during my PhD. Okay, and I am a current member of the Advanced Devices and System. Okay, it's a research group in USIM, okay, in FCAP, right? So before I go to my talk, okay, for the FCAP is quite a new faculty in USIM, and if I'm not mistaken, IEEE Photonic Lecture Group has invited Dr. Julisa, okay, to give a talk last year. So we are actually from same faculty and same research group. Okay, so USIM is very synonym with the Islamic culture knowledge, which is Quran, Sunnah, and Sharia and law. Okay, so that's why FCAP is being established in 2016. It's very, very new faculty, and it's very new and small faculty. We only have around 27 academic staff. Okay, and again, I think maybe Dr. Brisa has said about the akli and nakli. Okay, our main motto for USIM is akli and nakli knowledge, which is Quran and rational science. Okay, because I'm the Deputy Dean of the Research and Innovation in FCAP, so I would like to highlight the research group in FCAP. Basically, we have 4 research group, quite small research group but quite active. Okay, we have 4. Number 1, number 2, from Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, okay, ICPS and ADS, and number 3 and number 4, they are from Department of Built Environment. Okay, for ICPS, these are the field under ICPS lead by Prof. Kamarul Zaman. Okay, it's more on the security, okay, software modeling and design, and AI, right? And second group is led by Dr. Sharma, and I am a member of this group as well. Okay, so it's more like devices. We create or innovate sensors, optical devices, okay, biosensor and anything related to devices, and also system. Okay, so these are the members in our group. Okay, as I mentioned before, Dr. Sharma is the leader, and he's very strong in biosensor, and even he got many patents in biosensing. He was graduated from UUM Kedah. And then the rest of members, we have Dr. Imiza. She's the KGE, the Ketua Jabatan Elektronik, which is head of the Department of Electronic and Electrical. Dr. Marina, the Deputy Dean of Academic, and we have the Dr. Juliza. All of them, their background in optical devices, optical communication, and material science. Okay, and then we have new lecturers. Okay, we have Dr. Shanuriman. His field is on electrical power system and design. And then we have Dr. Khairul Nabila. More, she did research in ASPAT, okay, semiconductor and material science. Dr. Hanis in drone, and we have new professor, which is our mentor, Prof. Hafizal, and he was a lecturer as well, senior lecturer in MMU. If maybe some of you know him, okay, his field is in wireless communication, and he said he will venture in artificial intelligence technology field. Okay, and the rest, as I mentioned, eco-architectural technology and Islamic culture and heritage are basically under social science, which is under built environment. Okay, so everyone, okay, can you guys maybe respond, because we are doing a webinar. I'm not sure whether everyone can hear my talk, or maybe I just talk alone. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Alright. Okay. Boleh. I think I know that the voice. Okay. Alright. Because this talk is about biosensing. Maybe some of you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. Okay. Biosensing. Maybe some of you knows about biosensing. So I just would like to maybe give some introduction, okay, based on my understanding. Okay, biosensing is a technology that can be used to detect biological and chemical agents, such as we have bacteria, we have virus, we have microorganism. Okay, now we have the COVID-19. Okay, so I think there are many research doing COVID-19 virus sensing. Okay. And basically, biosensing use the biomolecule probe, okay, to detect and to sense the presence or the concentration of the biomolecule microorganism, biomolecule structure, and etc., particle, etc. Okay, so it needs the biomolecule probe. And there are many techniques for the biosensing, such as we have the electrochemistry, which is it produce the electric based on the chemical reaction. And we also have the immunoassay, okay, that use the antibody, okay, to do the test for the sensing. And the rest are physical, chemical, and optical approach for any enzyme and reaction. So biosensing in general is very crucial for the agriculture, okay, for the environmental monitoring, and I think the most important one is to diagnose any disease, okay, to sense any disease. However, some techniques, okay, have limited sensitivity, okay, and at low concentration, and some of the techniques are very complicated in terms of the experiment and in terms of the preparation. So the solution, maybe we can opt for the random laser. Okay, and because this group is a photonic group, and I believe you guys are very familiar with the laser. Okay, random laser is quite similar with the standard laser. So standard laser, normally we use the cavity, okay, consists of the two mirrors, okay, to reflect the light to and fro and bounce the light inside the gain medium. Okay, and then the mirrors can trap the light inside the medium. Then we need the gain medium, okay, the optical gain to amplify the light inside the medium. Okay, so when the system here, so we have the system that says is pump, okay, and the total gain inside this is exceed the total losses, and the system release, okay, they reach the threshold. Okay, then for the random laser is quite similar. The principle is quite similar. It needs the cavity. Okay, in random laser there are no mirrors at the cavity, two mirrors, so they use the particle, okay, that act to provide the multiple light scattering for the feedback mechanism. So those mechanism will trap the light inside the gain medium. Okay, so the gain medium provided by the optical gain, so it can be any dyes, okay, rhodamine, rhodamine 6G, any dye that can provide the optical gain. Similar with the standard laser, when the gain medium is excited, okay, is pumped, okay, so the light undergoes the multiple scattering, okay, and at the same time, because of the optical gain, it will be amplified. And then when the gain inside this exceed the losses, it will less and it will produce the lessing threshold. Okay, so random lasers, so the properties of random lasers, properties of the standard lasers. So we have the emission peak and line width. So we are talking about, when we talk about the properties around the lasers, we have the emission spectrum and the line width. Okay, the emission peak and line width, which is we have the narrow line width when the lacing occur. And of course, when we talk about the laser, okay, it's very synonym with the lacing threshold. So it's not considered a laser if there is no lacing threshold. So random lasers also has lacing threshold. When we consider as a lacing threshold for the random laser, if the emission peak intensity increase non-linearly with the pump energy density. You can see here from this graph, the non-linear graph, okay, for the emission peak intensity versus the pump energy density. Other than that, we have the coherent. Okay, coherent is one of the properties of random lasers. Okay, so the study can be done for the spatial coherent. Okay, where we can use the double slit experiment. Okay, the normal experiment, and also we can use the interferometer. So for this experiment, I use Michelson interferometer for the temporal coherent. So other than these three properties, there are also polarization. Okay, it's part of the properties of the random laser, and there are many research in polarization. But I will not go into the polarization of lasers because my field is more like my this research. Okay, is more like for the emission peak and line width and the lensing ratio. Okay, before I go to about biosensing, okay, let's take a look. The benefit of random lasers is small, not small, it's simple setup and it's quite cheap, okay, in terms of the experimental setup, and it's many, it can be used in many applications. So for example, so this group reading from US, okay, I think if I'm not mistaken, MIT something, okay, it's under Prof Chow, okay. They proved that the random lasers can be used for the imaging, which is random lasers can produce the speckle-free image compared to the broadband laser, ASE, and the narrowband laser. Okay, so these are the among their result to prove that random lasers produce the speckle-free images. Okay, so the characteristic of the random lasers, they also mention that the random lasers, it has the low spatial coherence, but it has the high intensity, high emission intensity. Okay, next, second application, as I mentioned before, it can be used to detect the disease. So in this case, the UN group, they prove that the random lasers can be used to diagnose the cancer. Okay, if you guys can look at the picture here, is basically the comparison between the normal tissue. So the above picture, there are normal tissue, and the below one, these are the tumor tissue. Okay, and we can see there are difference in terms of the complexity, in terms of the physical tissue itself. Okay, and they prove that the random lasers can be used to diagnose the cancer, where for the normal tissue, it produces the broadband and low spiky emission spectrum. But for the tumor tissue produce the more spiky emission spectrum, okay, compared to the normal tissue. And it is due to if you look at the tumor tissue, the tissues are very complex, and also is in the more disordered structure compared to the normal tissue. So that's why if you see the graph, it produces more spiky compared to the normal tissue. And next, random lasers can be used to sense the pH. Okay, so this group do the comparison between the neutral pH and the alkaline pH, and they found out that the alkaline pH produce the broadband emission spectrum, while the neutral pH produce the random laser. And the current application is 2019, which is last year, done by the Chinese group in China, if I'm not mistaken. They produce the 3D printing technology based on random laser. and this is how they fabricate the filament. And basically they use the polymer, okay, with the titanium dioxide. So this is the TiO2, titanium dioxide, and these are the result, the random laser. And they prove that random lasers can be used to produce a good 3D printer. And these are the result. Okay, and we can see the threshold here when we see the non-linear increase in terms of the intensity, okay, over the pump energy density. And in terms of the line width, the line width also become narrower. Okay, if you can see the figure here is around maybe 1 nanometer. Okay, so in this talk, I would like to explain more on how random lasers can be used as the biosensor. So biosensor, as I mentioned before, can be used in many applications, and it needs the biomolecule probe. So here we would like to we would like to measure the presence of the dopamine molecule. Okay, so how we do that? We use the gold nanoparticle, okay, to provide the multiple light scattering, okay, the gold nanoparticle, and the rhodamine dye for the gain, to provide the optical gain. So for biosensing random laser, what happened is the gold nanoparticle will aggregate with the dopamine molecule, okay, and it produce the random laser in terms of the emissions, narrower land width, higher emission spectrum, and also the lensing ratio. And we measure the sensing parameters based on the emission peak wavelength shift, okay, emission line width, SNR, and also the lensing ratio. So the benefit of this random laser is simple sample preparation, okay, and it's quite sensitive probe for the scattering particle or the concentration. Before I go further, let's basically take a look what is the dopamine, okay, and I believe all of us knows the dopamine. And dopamine is basically is a body's chemical messenger. It's a messenger, okay. It transmits the signal between the nerve cell here, inside the brain or inside the body. So the function is to ease the communication between the nerve cell in the nervous system and also the controlling movement, okay, in our body. So it involved in any brain reward system and feeling of pleasure. For instance, if we involve in any pleasure activity, okay, the dopamine will be released. And there are also research said that the dopamine is produced more during the day and less during the night. And so that's why we feel awake or we feel fresh during the day, and we feel quite sleepy and tired during the night. And that's also because of the dopamine. Amount of dopamine in our brain considered very important, because if we have not enough dopamine, insufficient dopamine, we can have the Parkinson's disease, okay. But if we have a large amount of dopamine, we also can have the disease, which is the Huntington disease. Okay, so in this research, we actually try to detect the presence of the dopamine, because the dopamine can trigger the aggregation of the gold nanoparticle. Okay, so if you look at the picture here, so this is AU3+. This is the icon for the unit for the gold nanoparticle. So how dopamine triggers the aggregation gold nanoparticle? Basically the dopamine molecule can be absorbed onto the gold nanoparticle surface through the electrostatic to the surface of the gold nanoparticle through the electrostatic adhesion. Okay, that's the chemical reaction. Okay, and we add the copper ion. Okay, copper ion to enhance the aggregation. Okay, which is it can provide the link, okay, between the dopamine molecule and the gold nanoparticle, right? And basically it can attach the dopamine molecule with the basically this is the hydroxyl and the amino inside the dopamine, right? So again, the dopamine can trigger the aggregation of the gold nanoparticle. So in this research, we use the gold nanoparticle as the scatterers. Okay, and the copper ion can assist the aggregation of the gold nanoparticle by the dopamine. So we can have the gold aggregation. And to confirm that, okay, so this is the absorbent emission, the absorbent spectrum, okay, for the different dopamine concentration. All right, so when you actually place a lot of dopamine, you can see here the absorbent spectrum no longer has peak at the 550 nanometer. So it proves that there is the aggregation inside the sample. Okay, and it also can be proved by using the TEM, okay, TEM technique. So if you can look at this picture, so for the first picture, this is the gold nanoparticle without dopamine, okay, and you can see here there is no aggregation occur. And then when we put dopamine, okay, there are some aggregation. And when we put more dopamine, okay, there's more aggregation occur for the gold nanoparticle. Okay, so now how we can construct a random laser? Okay, as I mentioned, the gold nanoparticle or the aggregated gold nanoparticle act as the scatterers or the disordered medium, okay, to provide the feedback mechanism, and then dye to provide the sample, to provide the optical gain. It means here if we do not use the optical gain here, there is no lacing, or if we do not use any particle, there will be no lacing as well. And then the sample must be excited. So if not, the optical gain cannot be produced. So we still need the pump source to excite the sample. Okay, so this is the experimental setup here. Okay, basically the pump source is the Nd:YAG pulse laser. So this is the Nd:YAG pulse laser, and the detector we use the ocean optic spectrometer to collect and display the emission spectrum. So this is the normal, very simple emission setup. Okay, and the sample here is the gold nanoparticle plus the dopamine plus the copper ion. Yeah, copper chloride. Okay, this is the result for the emission width and without scatterers. So this is the emission spectrum without the gold nanoparticle, and this is the emission spectrum with the gold nanoparticle. And you can see the difference here between the without gold and with gold. Without gold, the emission spectrum quite broad, okay. But if you have scatterers here, which is a gold nanoparticle, the spectrum narrowing, okay. And then in terms of the width and without dopamine concentration, so this is the emission spectrum with the least amount of the dopamine, okay, and then we add up more dopamine here, right? And then this is the highest dopamine concentration. So if you can see here, the emission spectrum narrows, and then when we use more and more concentration of the dopamine, the emission spectrum become larger again. Okay, and we cannot see the threshold here. Okay, so now we try to look at the lacing threshold based on the emission spectrum here. Okay, so if we can see here, the black dot here is the emission spectrum for the least amount of dopamine, which is 100 nanomolar, okay, the 10 power minus 7 molar. And the blue one is for the concentration of the dopamine for the highest concentration, of dopamine. Okay, and you can see here the lacing threshold can be achieved for the lowest concentration of the dopamine, but not for the highest concentration of dopamine. Okay, the lacing threshold is determined when the emission peak intensity increase non-linearly with the pump energy density. So this help basically to determine the lacing threshold. Okay, and okay, that's about the random laser. Okay, now how we determine the dopamine sensing parameter, basically based on four properties here: the lacing threshold, the shift of the emission peak wavelength, the line width of the emission spectrum, and the ratio of the emission peak intensity over noise. And based on these parameters, we conclude that the limit for the dopamine detection is around 100 nanomolar, or 1 times 10 power minus 7 molar. Now we try to look at the first sensing parameter, which is the lacing ratio. Okay, so this is the lacing ratio that we plot based on the emission spectrum. And if you look at the graph here, okay, so this is the 100 nanomolar. So the lacing threshold start to increase, okay, after 100 nanomolar. So that's why we conclude that the limit for the sensing sensitivity is 100 nanomolar. Okay, and the second sensing parameter is about the emission peak shift. So this is the emission spectrum, and we can see a small shift for the different concentration of the dopamine, and we plot this, okay, into this graph. And again, we can see the limit, the similar limit with the previous lacing threshold sensitivity limit, okay, which is the 100 nanomolar. Okay, so the detection limit is 100 nanomolar. It based on the shift of the emission peak wavelength. And the third sensing parameter is the emission line width, where we actually measure the emission line width for the 90%. Okay, 90%. Okay, and again, it produce the same sensitivity limit, which is 100 nanomolar. Okay, and last one is the peak emission intensity over the noise, background noise. Okay, and we actually look at these parameters based on, I think, four concentration of the dopamine. Okay, and if you not the concentration of dopamine, the different pump energy density. Okay, so if you look at this graph, which is the graph of the emission peak intensity over noise over the concentration of dopamine, we can see that the graph, okay, change at the 10 to the power of -7 molar, start to change. So that's why we conclude that the dopamine detection limit is around 100 nanomolar. Okay, so I think for the project, okay, what we can understand is for the random laser, we need the rhodometer dye to provide the gain, optical gain, laser source to excite the sample, and also the gold nanoparticle to provide the feedback mechanism. And then from this project also we can see the effects of the gold aggregation towards the properties of the random lasers, where we can conclude that the gold nanoparticle is aggregate when we put the dopamine, and the aggregation is enhanced when we put the copper chloride. And the aggregated gold nanoparticle basically produce the higher lensing ratio compared to the non-aggregated gold nanoparticle, and it produce the broad emission spectra. So based on the project, we conclude that random laser can be used as the biosensors. Okay, the sensing parameters, as I discussed before, is based on the emission peak shift, the lensing ratio, emission line width, and the peak emission density over noise. So current and future works, I'm doing the modeling for the random lasers, okay, and also the study based on the co-shell nanoparticle and surface roughness, which is the collaboration with my previous university in Mercury University, and then try to study the suitability of random lasers for other molecules. Okay, we try to do the sensing for the water contaminant using the random laser, and try to detect the fat globule in milk, okay, using the random laser. For the current work here, so this is the current experiment by my student here, is the light propagation, is the spectrum analysis using the spectrometer, the different type of the spectrometer, visible spectrometer, NIR spectrometer, and the FTIR. So this result basically is under review. Okay, I submitted the result to the journal. Okay, the try to study the light propagation in the skim milk, the comparison, the light comparison of the light propagation in the skim milk, full milk, and water. And these are also quite similar. It's just that for the milk, it being fermented, okay, it exposed to the air for 8 days, 11 days, until 7 days, and we can see the difference in terms of the absorbance and the transmission. And for the modeling, we did the modeling for the milk comparison between milk, water, and the vacuum using the Mie scattering. Yeah. So this is the modeling comparison between the cow's milk and the buffalo milk, which is, if we look at this picture, not so many different. Okay, the milk. I think that's all. Okay, I would like to acknowledge funding and support for the FIGS grant, internal grant, FCAP, and USIM. I think that's all from me.
Thank you, Dr. Zakiah. There is a question in the chat box.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I can read it.
Sorry, because I didn't aware of the chat box.
Never mind, I can read the question.
Okay. Wait. Nak tengok.
You see?
Okay.
Dapat.
Okay. Chat with everyone. Okay. Oh, attendant.
Tak apa, yang bawah-bawah.
Okay. May I know why the wavelength laser emission rate shifted as the concentration? Any effect from the plasmonic gold? Okay, to answer this, I think there is effect in terms of the surface plasmon, which is uh, uh, maybe the surface plasmon can shift the wavelength laser emission. Okay, and I'm not sure whether if the gold nanoparticle aggregated, it can enhance or decrease the surface plasmon resonance. That one I'm not sure. Okay. Uh, okay, second, I'm also making it a good presentation. Okay, Dr. Fariza. Okay, thank you, Dr. Fariza. Lagi ke?
Okay, any other questions from the audience? Maybe I can ask you question, Dr. Zakiah.
Okay.
Actually, why did you choose gold? The property of gold. If
Okay, for the metal, we have gold, we have titanium, we have silver, but for the dopamine, it's only the dopamine can make the gold nanoparticle aggregate. It cannot make silver nanoparticle aggregate, so that's why we choose gold nanoparticle.
oh,
Yeah. And so to answer your question, why we use metal, we try also with the alumina, but alumina and titanium dioxide, but there is no aggregation. And I think for the gold aggregation using dopamine, there are a lot of research actually that shows that the dopamine can make the gold aggregated. Okay, so that's why we choose gold.
okay. There's one more question from Fariza on the chat box.
For the Anderson localization, I to subtract. Okay. Anderson localization, I think we need to look at the scattering mean free path here, the localization length. But for our case, we actually do not measure the Anderson localization length. Okay, we just actually I think assume the LS scattering based on the concentration of the gold nanoparticle. So here we said that the scattering mean free path is similar. Okay, for the every sample. Is there any study using the technique to detect biomolecule? Using this technique, which is random laser to detect biomolecules such as DNA and antibody. For the random laser to detect the DNA antibody, I'm not sure. But to detect milk, I think there is one group to sense the fat globule. Okay, and the rest, I think, not sure lah about the DNA and antibody. Okay, maybe we can try, okay, to use the random laser for to detect the biomolecule. But for the other technique, other than random laser, yes, I'm very sure there is biosensors to sense the DNA and antibody. And I think there are group from UUM did the uh, biosensing technique. I'm not sure I think they use the chemical reaction, okay, to look at the DNA. Okay. Okay, no maths derivation or just purely, yeah, this just only purely experimental. Okay, for the project that I presented, there are no basically maths involved, only simple calculation. If you do the simulation of the random laser, I think this parameter will be important in my opinion. Yes, if you do the modeling, we did actually the modeling, okay. But I think if you using the chemical reaction, the experiment actually not really uh, pictures the modeling, okay. So that's why we actually do not provide the simulation punya simulation result. Okay. Alright. So any more question?
Zakiah, when you do, I saw your experimental setup just now. You have the ND laser and then the spectrometer, right? So in the figure that you show, it seems like the setup is like measuring the emission, right? Not the reflectance, is it?
It's emission.
So how do you align? I mean, because the spectrometer is you use the lens in front of the spectrometer, is it to focus the
Yeah, to
emission?
focus, and we only collect the emission on the front surface of the cuvette.
Okay. So the spectrometer is ocean optic spectrometer, the visible NIR.
Visible and ocean optic spectrometer, the normal one.
Okay. Any other questions? No more questions, huh? If no more questions, so we would like to, I think that's all for today. We would like to thank Dr. Wan Zakiah for her sharing for today. Before we leave, can I ask everyone, for those who can turn on their cameras, I just want to take one screenshot.
It looks like everyone is shy.
Maybe those who can turn on your camera just for a while for me to take a screenshot.
Yeah, it's a proof, It's a proof.
And now only only 3 people are turning on their.
Yeah, we have Dr. Fariza, and the rest I think are very shy.
Fariza is from UMT, right? Are you UMT?
UMT, Dr. Fariza?
Yes, I am.
Terengganu, because I am from Terengganu, Besut. Okay, I think
Dr. Marina,
Dr. Marina, our FCAP TDA, maybe she's busy with the documentation.
Ada. Tak apa. Ambil je gambar dia ni.
And the rest, see Dr. Hafizal, Prof. Hafizal, I think. His son, showing his son.
We're at home.
I think Prof.
We're working from home. We're working from home then, so the background is not very professional.
Yeah, still as mine, okay, I'm at home, need to be quarantined, okay, because of the privilege issue.
Okay, never mind. Just smile. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Azlida. And if you have any more question, all of you can contact me using my email. Okay?
Yeah, maybe we can visit USIM for research collaboration because so the experiment all are done in USIM, right? The characterization and everything.
No, that one actually not in USIM. Okay. We actually for USIM we only doing some modeling.
Oh, okay.
So only for the current work like light propagation, yes, we did in USIM.
Okay, so the rest with your collaborator, is it?
Collaborator, yes.
Oh, okay. Good. maybe we can collaborate in the future. Actually, in MMU we are also interested in sensor, but so far we haven't done anything on biosensor lah.
I think MMU
Because
is more on laser, right? More on laser, solid state laser.
now we are go towards a sensor, but using a specialty optical fiber.
Oh, okay. Fiber
We
sensor.
Yeah, fiber sensor, but for different applications, radiation sensing, and also physical parameter sensing, like more on distributed sensing work. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you everyone for joining us. Don't forget to key in your attendance. Yeah, in the chat box, I already paste the link for you to key in your attendance. Okay, before you leave, kindly leave your name and your the only the name and I think in the list name and your affiliation. Okay, thank you everyone. See you
Okay, thank
again
you
next
all.
time. Thank you again, Dr. Zakiah.
Assalamualaikum. All right, no
Thank you so
worries.
much. Okay,
Okay.
bye bye.
Bye.